But first, a word from our sponsor.
Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? Okay, so you have your script, you're ready to record. So now what? Anchor, a podcasting platform, can come to your rescue. I use it for my podcasts because of the ease of having Anchor distribute my episodes on other podcasting platforms, such as Spotify and Apple Podcast. It's a free platform with its own creation tools that make it easy for you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And the best part? You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Now that's a good deal. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Anchor.fm is everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place.
And now, on with the show.
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble, and finally gets us to die with pride. Even though sometimes we have to be steady and give up the things we want most, even our dreams. We all know what significance Uncle Ben said when he uttered the words, "We're great with power, comes great responsibility." It wasn't the first, but it was the most important, obvious life lesson within the story arc, catapulting Peter Parker's understanding of how this advice has shaped his future within the Spider-Man Trilogy. But what other hidden life lessons have we missed or ignored throughout Peter's journey? Within a universe that spans 3 movies, 6 years in the storyline, and various characters, not to mention cameos from Stan Lee, it begs to question whether throughout this world Peter, Harry, and Mary Jane actually did learn anything and took something from it all. This is 2 takes, and this is 1 shot, an analysis of the trilogy that is Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire edition. Be warned, spoilers are ahead. When we see Peter's school environment from the very beginning, and how he has virtually no friends, but is a kind and humble person, we can understand his resilience by his teachings from Aunt May and Uncle Ben, primarily on how forgiving Peter is to his peers in how they bully him and taunt him. This forgiveness leads him through a journey where at the beginning, where all he had to worry about was bullies and making good grades, comes crashing down. Like Green Goblin exclaims, it's his heart, always the heart, that will get attacked. And from what we can remember about these movies, it's always involving those he loves. It is almost like this whole journey is emphasizing the experience a kid would have when growing from a child into a man. The lessons involved have recurring themes that span through friendships, love interests, and family members alike. So let's take a look, diving into the universe that is Spider-Man. Having watched all 3 movies, the same repeated mistakes get used multiple times, ending in someone, most probably Mary Jane, getting stuck in the crossfires. Breaking through the MJ always needs saving cliché and declining to actually follow the storyline, the concentration is instead on the characters themselves. First off is Harry Osborn. Harry, the best friend to Peter, and eventually a friend to Mary Jane, is without a doubt a complicated and unfortunately not well established character. However, throughout Spider-Man 1 and 2, it is noticed that he is the catalyst for both the Green Goblin and Doc Ock finding out Peter's connection towards Spider-Man through Harry's knowledge of Peter. It is known that in the first movie, the Green Goblin does grab J. Jonah Jameson by the throat, demanding to know the name of the photographer, which he doesn't reveal, but it was through Harry's conversation with his father about MJ that the Green Goblin can use something against Spider-Man. Harry knows Peter has loved MJ since forever, and the Green Goblin's plan was always to attack Peter for Spider-Man's heart. In the second movie, in a more obvious fashion, Harry, through his anger and grief, strikes a deal with Otto by revealing that Peter takes pictures of Spider-Man for the Daily Bugle. Common knowledge again, that turns out to be dangerous. The first reveal being unknowing, and the second to be known with a feeble "don't hurt Peter" as Otto walks away. Harry's character can be seen as weak and insecure in the first movie, what with a father that admires your best friend's achievements, ignoring you exist, to being grief-stricken and dangerously obsessed in finding his father's killer, Spider-Man. He is shocked to discover Peter is Spider-Man and is torn in two, only able to stay away and be bitter when Peter tries to talk to him in a public place. His best friend is his worst enemy combined, and much like Shakespeare has written, "My only love sprung from my only hate," this is the same for Harry having to choose his course of action. And luck has it, he has 2 movies to choose both good and bad endings. Being alienated in the big house, with any attempt to grow up thrust upon him by making calls and becoming the leader in Oscorp, literally blows up in his face. And so, his grief sets him to become what his father desperately tried to hide, the Green Goblin. But let's not get sidetracked what Harry did to Peter, and what he did in the end that cost him his life. I want to try to look for the good in this character, even though he was mostly off-screen. The indication from researching these films is that Harry is entitled, embarrassed by it at the beginning, but slowly uses it to his advantage, not just for himself, but for his friends. He helps Peter by asking if he wants a job in Oscorp, by both of them sharing an apartment and most likely his father paying the bills, by scheduling a meeting between Peter and Otto Octavius so Peter can finish his paper, and by being free and being a shoulder to cry on for Mary Jane in the 3rd movie. His resourcefulness can go both ways, like when he sees MJ splitting up with Flash and makes a move before Peter even realises, being able to find Tritium, a very hard resource to come by, to bargain with, and finding the Goblin suit, the glider, and the performance enhancers and perfecting it for his own use. Depending on the scenario, Harry, let's face it, is resourceful. His entitlement, true, gives him a head start, but Harry's resourcefulness is his personification. He either helps or hinders those around him, as well as the choices that regard the heart. His learning from his inaction when it comes to choosing. Think of when his father belittles his girlfriend MJ and he doesn't stick up for her. And then action of doing something within the choice he has to make. Think of the hallucination of his father in the mirror to avenge him. Then fast forward to when Harry knows it's Peter as Spider-Man and tries again, but with an enhanced physique. Harry is always going by emotion, until the last film, with his butler giving him evidence, making it all fall apart. Harry, like his father, wants to attack Spider-Man's heart, but what is really happening here is that he's attacking his own. In the movies, they do not show Harry's anguish, apart from the few scenes here and there, presenting Harry as almost somewhat as an annoyance when it comes to the main character. However, there is more to him than that meets the eye. The problem is that his journey is not the one we're supposed to watch, but overall, it can be felt that Harry's small journey can teach us lessons, life lessons, that can be understood and relatable in the real world. Mary Jane Watson, the damsel, the woman that is always out of reach, becomes, at the end of the trilogy, more human and approachable as a flawed character. The reason for this is to present her as something more than someone to save, something more than a side product of making the hero look good. Her journey is the projection of being something more than the usual female in an action/romance, and with this, we shall look at all 3 movies to understand Mary Jane. In the first Spider-Man, Mary Jane is immediately presented through Peter's narrative that she is the girl next door and how Peter has loved her since they were children. This idolization is quickly made to be a realistic adoration, rather than a lust from a distance, whereas both parties have never spoken, much like many movies that project this. Mary Jane and Peter have spoken, and from what we can see, MJ is a approachable and friendly person, emphasizing that already Peter's adoration is for the reason of her being a good person, inside and out. Looking further, we can see that, once again, like with Harry, there seems to be a repetitive theme occurring. In Spider-Man 1 and 2, Mary Jane is always seen in the arms of another man at a big event, with Peter seeing her through a camera lens. This could emphasize his idolization of her, basically placing her on a pedestal. And just like that, because of hesitancy, think of Harry making a move when Peter didn't in Spider-Man 1, he has her at arm's length. And in Spider-Man 2, when she has moved on and gets engaged to someone else, Peter has to endure because this time he has acted too late. Acting like paparazzi, snapping her picture because of what she represents to the 2 men she's seen with through his camera lens. With Harry and with John Jameson, MJ is almost presented like a beautiful accessory. With Harry, she wears a silk-patterned red dress, making her stand out, much to Harry's dismay, wanting her to wear black. With Jane, she is wearing black to a black tie event, having her engagement be broadcasted to the audience. She was wearing something less eye-catching, but because of her chosen partner, he thrusts her in the spotlight because of his fame. From independence or wanting of it with Harry, to not wanting the spotlight with James, Mary Jane is also trying to find her place. She wants to act, and she does, in a Broadway play, to eventually wanting to sing at Broadway, which again she does. And she fails. Not because she's terrible, but because this is the realistic idea of anyone wanting to make it big. It's a hard market to tolerate and to compete in, and Mary Jane, at the moment in her life, couldn't keep up. She endures, much like she had to do with her father's abuse, Norma's disapproval of her to her son, of Harry's dismissing her, of Peter rejecting her, of being the chosen one to get at someone else because of Spider-Man. Even after all of this, she endures with a sense of respect for herself, and giving others chances and, most importantly, the utmost humility. She accepts her failures and tries again and again. As Peter says, the great thing about MJ is when you look into her eyes and she's looking back in yours, everything feels not quite normal. Because you feel stronger and weaker at the same time. You feel excited and at the same time terrified. The truth is, you don't know what you feel, except you know what kind of man you want to be. It's as if you reached the unreachable and you weren't ready for it. Mary Jane is the epitome of the woman that could make you be the best of yourself, or attempt to be. That is why she's attracted to Peter in the end, because she sees the best of him throughout everything. Mary Jane, perhaps only being seen in a particular way by the audience, has had hardships she has had to overcome with unwavering grace and acceptance, and throughout her journey, life lessons can also be presented by her character. And last but not least, we have Peter Parker, the main protagonist of the Spider-Man universe. His journey has not been for the faint of heart. From being resilient in his life, of being without many friends, to suddenly having powers. From having an identity with Spider-Man as his alter ego, it consumes his life in the second Spider-Man film. It gets to the point where he's repressing his emotional heartache, whilst almost reflecting on the unfairness of how things are not working out when his powers sporadically stop working. Taking a break from being Spider-Man makes the city become more susceptible to crime, emphasizing his need to protect, even if it is total strangers. But he resists, until he saves a kid in the burning building, only to realise that another poor soul got stuck and died on the fourth floor. And the heartbreaking thing is that he does this as himself, as a human being. But whatever Peter does at this point, it almost looks like it's never good enough, until it comes together at the end of the second movie by MJ's choice. The third is about his arrogance and anger, and how he needs to forgive those who have wronged him. With Aunt May's teachings of forgiveness and Uncle Ben's lessons of responsibility, Peter, like any other growing young adult, needs to figure this out on his own terms. And although he does have disadvantages, his protective instincts, his love for those around him, and his promises are all upheld. This is a notable trait, as you will see. In Spider-Man 1, Peter's protective instincts for MJ against Green Goblin give him the boost he needs to overcome his enemy. When Norman asks him not to tell Harry about his alter ego, Peter respects his dying wish, and no matter how angry Harry gets towards Peter, Peter protects Harry throughout, wanting the lasting image of his father to be a good one. At the end of this, Peter decides not to be with the one he loves out of protection. This aspect of protection in the second film is reciprocated towards Peter when the people on the train keep a secret of him being Spider-Man, and again, through MJ herself, when she finally sees that Peter and Spider-Man are one and the same, she accepts why she cannot be with him, and goes back to James, unwillingly but understandably. In the third film, it's forced and fearful protection from MJ towards Peter by breaking up with him to try and keep him safe, and Harry in protecting Peter by giving his life. From all of the protection Peter has given out, it has come back, even if it is through horrible means. From all of these protective traits, there is an enormous amount of sacrificing that Peter has done to maintain things in a balance around him, to the point that there is an imbalance in himself. Right from the start, from the moment his alter ego was being seen as a threat, Peter has had to sacrifice his human life for Spider-Man. But all in all, it's all about balance, and after understanding that Peter has these overwhelming needs of protection and sacrificing, it's no wonder that in the third film, we see things more from MJ's and Harry's perspective. And from the different view, Peter, getting a little too comfortable in how great his life is going, has others' lives in shambles around him. And here, he learns from his friends about resourcefulness, humility, forgiveness, and responsibility, to the final scene of Mary Jane, the once unobtainable love of his life, in his arms, more real and more human than anything. It is in that lasting moment that we see their sadness and perhaps their final form into the man and woman they will finally become, and the sacrifices that they both have made to get here. If you enjoyed what was said, please follow me on Anchor and Spotify. Be kept in the loop for new episodes by following my Instagram. And if you have any questions, email me at twotakespodcast1@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for listening.